Hello, Internet, and welcome to 58th episode of the Fried Neurons Podcast. I am so sorry that I have not been active for the last 2 weeks or something like that. Happy New Year to everybody. And, what I really had planned for the last episode of 2019 is top 10 best memes of the decade because, memes is not a niche that this podcast has shied away from, but I really want to put work into it, and I want to give you a good list that sort of stands for itself, and I'm sorry that it's not ready yet. Paras, especially, I know I promised this week that it would be it, but it's difficult to do right now. I'm really sorry, not to mention I'm going through a little bit of an emotional situation. But let's not get into that. Let's keep it professional. MAM episode 4 is out. If you guys are following that series, I'm very proud of it. Please go check it out. And next week for sure there will be memes, but till then we're talking about video game literacy. So, cue the fucking... Hello kids, and it's your boy. I'm pretty sure people have unsubscribed by now.
Yeah, boy.
That was quick.
Yeah. Today we're talking about video game literacy, and I have with me Madhvi and Machi. I call him Machi because he insists that his name. I don't know what his real name is. And We'll do a round of introductions. You already know who I am. If you don't, then why are you on my channel? Actually, please don't leave. I know you could be new. It's Fried Neurons, and
I am madh.avi. I'm a developer, but podcasting-wise, I am somewhat occasionally there on Bad in Bollywood.
plug.
Mild plugs. Video games-wise, I mainly have experience with RPGs and a lot of Counter-Strike, which was not my standard enjoyment of games. I wasn't really in the demographic for it, but I ended up being knee deep in it after a point.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my main situation.
Yeah. What up? What it do? Sorry, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Nothing chilling in the Holiday Inn. Okay, so I'm Siddharth, also very commonly known as Machi for God knows what reason. So I'm a senior game tester at Ubisoft Pune, and I've been there for a while now. I feel like every day is the same, and I cannot figure out how long it's been. So I've been on a couple of AAA titles, from Ghost Recon Wildlands to Far Cry 5 to Assassin's Creed Odyssey to currently Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That's what I do. And if you guys want to know a little bit more in depth, I don't mind going into it.
I mean, right off the bat, I guess. Go ahead.
So, technically right now, I'm one of the core members of the balancing team in Ubisoft, where we balancing and game break. So basically our job is to make sure the game doesn't break, and we need to make sure we break it from our sides ourselves. So that involves stuff like going through games like Odyssey and looking for stuff that is overpowered, looking for stuff that's underpowered, make sure things are pretty level overall, there aren't too many exploits, and if there are, we can isolate them beforehand and make sure they're not super major and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's who we have for this topic, and I guess you guys know, you've read the title, you're not idiots, but we're talking about video game literacy today. So I'll tell you what you can Google when you put in video game literacy. It's basically the fact that how you get used to driving, you get used to video games. There is a certain amount of inherent knowledge when it comes to playing a video game in context of a title, which makes it easier for you or makes you accustomed to gaming. And I just wanted to start off with knowing what your experience with video game literacy is, and which game did you find it in that you already had it in you, if you remember at all?
Oh man, that's kind of tough because I kind of grew up with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the day I actually found that, I'm pretty literate in terms of video games is when I started playing World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in 2008 or something. And, I got into the game and I knew what things are. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, I know this. And I know how to do this and I know how to do that. And, but then there's always things you don't know, right? And I picked it up pretty quick. And, once I was 6-7 months into the game, I actually felt like, oh yeah, man, I know these things. I know RPG elements in games.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, all of that was kind of trumped after I joined Ubisoft because there are people who know 10 times more things than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first pseudo knowledge that I had. And then the day I actually realized that I actually know things and I'm actually literate in this topic is say 6 or 7 months into working at Ubisoft, where I figured I could hold my own on certain topics. And it didn't have to be a specific game that I've played. It was just if there was a topic going on about, say, Counter-Strike. I don't play Counter-Strike that much, but I was still knowledgeable enough to partake in the conversation. And I think that is the day where I actually figured out, okay, yeah, this is good. I'm not stupid. Yeah.
Madh?
So, I guess I did start gaming very late. It was maybe 2016 or actually no, I think 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I had started with just Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect, which were great, but I was also terrible at them. And then I think since I started late, it's easier for me to think about the concept of literacy, because just getting used to a 3D space is a bit unusual as soon as you start out. Getting used to controls when you're not at all. That kind of a thing. I don't know, if I could feel the curve of me getting used to just seeing a health bar in a game and realizing I didn't have to think about how that worked. But I still didn't really have much experience with shooters and stuff. But as soon as I got into Counter-Strike, I felt like I put a huge amount of dedicated learning curve-isms in that. And yeah, when I started out, I was really fumbling because I was barely able to point the gun at stuff, and I was being very dragging down for the team.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, I don't know, I feel like that was my whole curve of video games that happened within Counter-Strike, and after that, it was just, I don't know, I feel like the parallels to reading a book is also interesting. I'd done a little bit of just glancing through Google before this.
Mm-hmm.
I found an interesting point about how just there's a lot of parallels between literacy and the first thing that comes to mind is language.
Mm-hmm.
So literacy and language versus how do you determine if somebody's literate? It's whether they would get through a book, whether the book is easy to read or it's complicated in its language or complicated in its meaning. And another thing is just this concept of is it a book? If you put it down halfway, have you really experienced the book? And that parallel with the video game. Can you say you've experienced a Bioshock if you've stopped it at first battle kind of thing? So yeah, I mean, just lots of random thoughts in my head about video literacy at this point.
That actually helped because that helps me get into the next question that I had for both of you is that, for example, video game literacy for every game isn't the same. I mean, of course, you have a certain amount of idea about controls, but we recently did a Doom series on my channel. Plug, go check it out. So we realized that playing Doom especially was not easy for everybody. I had a lot of fun because I've completed the game, but Karan had immense amounts of trouble getting used to the fact that it was an FPS. Yashasvi and Madhvi were fine.
Yeah.
So I'm just, and then you go in a completely different universe. When me and Karan were playing FIFA, Karan already knew everything about it, and to a certain extent I needed help to get used to the controls, from not only because it was from keyboard to a joystick, but also because it's a completely different realm of completing your objective and perspective of how you're looking at the character you're controlling. So what's in your opinion the widest gap of learning you've had to make when it comes to gaming? you were used to this and then you switched to a completely different genre and that's where you had to get used to?
For me, actually, it was, again, like, this is like pretty much expected. But like I said, the first game I worked on was Ghost Recon Wildlands. And it's a third-person co-op shooter. And I had never played a third-person co-op shooter before this, like properly, with an entire open world and any of that stuff. And I was so bad at it. Like, I just couldn't, because I came from playing games like World of Warcraft and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so then I think that was a big learning curve for me to figure out, how to actually aim. And then I think what made it a bigger deal is because I was testing primarily on PS4. So I had to like learn how to use an entire new controller, which I had never done before, because I never owned a PS4, because I've always been PC master base. So yeah, so I think that was a massive learning curve to learn how to play I think it's going to be for anyone to learn to play any kind of shooter game on a controller, because that's one of the slightly tougher things to do, coming from mouse and keyboard and that kind of stuff. And I think after that is when I picked up Overwatch, because I am not an FPS player. Like I said, I don't play shooters in general. Like the last shooter I played before Ghost Recon was Mass Effect, which is one of my favorite RPG games of all time. And yeah, it took me a while, because like I had to learn how to first find my comfort zone with sensitivity and DPI, and I had to do research and figure out what I'm comfortable with, and then practice that and get better at that. And then I'm still not that good at it. That's why I mainly play like characters that don't require that much aim. So yeah, because like I mean I'm a Doomfist main. A lot of people don't like that. He's not a broken character as much as people say. But yeah, so I think for me that was and still is my biggest learning curve till date. I'm still honing my skills with shooters and FPSs in general, and yeah, it's an ongoing process.
So I think my most recent experience was also with switching from keyboard mouse to controller. My office like buddies got me Assassin's Creed, and it like basically held a gun to my head and asked me to play it. So I was kind of opposed to Assassin's Creed, but I had fun. Although Assassin's Creed 2 is heavily broken. I'm so sorry. It was fun though. Like I did not expect it.
Ubisoft game here?
Never. How could I? Although Rainbow Six Siege, please fix. Devs. Thanks. Cannot open.
That's not my project. Okay.
No, seriously though, our success, if you can hear us.
Yeah, can you
like,
hear
help.
me? Someone listening. Okay, but what was I saying? Yeah, from Assassin's Creed, I tried keyboard mouse, and I think that particular game is just not optimized for keyboard and mouse. But I really like slaved to try and get there. But eventually somebody let me borrow their controller, and that was a gigantic learning curve, because the previous experience I'd had was Street Fighter, where it was just button mash to win. So there was like I literally tried to learn the mechanics, and the more I learned, the worse I got at it. But yeah, so switching console is a whole other part of the brain, I feel. I just had to like start thinking differently. Like some things were a lot easier, some things like in a keyboard mouse the precision is a lot most recently Jedi Fallen Order, I was using a keyboard until it was absolutely unplayable, and then I switched to a console, and the things that I found easy in with the keyboard mouse were like suddenly I was like falling all the time, but I was less scared of jumping. I don't know, there was just some it like really made me think for a while about what aspects were easy and weren't, but yeah.
And I mean, I want to make a sudden switch now. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
No, I just wanted to add that like Jedi Fallen Order, the combat on keyboard mouse is much easier, but like doing parkour on a keyboard that probably is not a good high-end keyboard. It's just not easy, because sometimes that space button is just not going to register, so it's pretty bad. But yeah, I think overall it's a very valid point. Switching to a controller or up and down from keyboard to controller is a big deal. It takes
Especially
some time.
Like halfway through a game.
Exactly, yeah. Especially halfway through a game. But it's something I like urge everyone to do in their free time. it's practice, man. You get used to using both of them.
Yeah. Also, like there's an element of challenging yourself. At least if you enjoy a game, if you really enjoy a game.
I guess. But I mean, like I said, if I want to challenge myself, I wouldn't use a controller.
Mhm.
But I guess it depends on the game, honestly. I'm not going to play Need for Speed with a keyboard, so I'm not going to play like...
Counter-Strike controller.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I say that because you could make really good content. I think I showed Madhvi that video. There's this dude. I forget his channel's name.
Oh, Shadi Steve? No.
No, not Shadi.
But yeah.
Is this a controller? I think that's what it's called.
The guy who makes controllers out of random things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting way to look at gaming because I think he played Doom 2, like the first level on Doom 2, and well, he used a toy trumpet.
Oh damn!
So he was dooting while he was dooming.
Is this the same guy who finished Dark Souls on a
Guitar Hero? I think it might be the same person.
Yeah, is it? Because like maybe I'm getting confused between this guy and there's another guy who makes his own controllers. So basically,
it's the other guy.
Okay, so there's this one guy who made a controller for Lucio from Overwatch, which was basically a glove that switches music based on Lucio's hand signs, which is pretty sick. It's so cool. So yeah, if it's that guy, man, that guy's sick. I mean, like I can't begin to imagine where you start with that.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that we mentioned Dark Souls, even in passing and on a completely different tangent. But
it's not a genre.
It's not a genre. It's not a
just,
genre.
Just a shout out. It's not a genre. Everything is not Souls-like because it's slightly difficult.
Why do you gotta call out people like that? Why do you gotta start
facts?
Well, I mean, I mentioned Souls because it's a group of people who like largely use this concept in particular as a defense for the way they make their games. Now, I'm not complaining. I love Dark Souls, even though it's difficult and it makes me want to kill myself. But the reason I bring it up is because really steep, like on a learning curve, if there is too much positive punishment to your player.
Yeah, there is. I mean, positive is a positive way to put it, but...
No, positive punishment as well.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, positive, like, it depends on your mindset. I mean... Definitely not positive of the first 10 times I got kicked off a cliff.
No, I mean positive punishment in the sense of the way we learn training and behavior.
Yeah.
So there's positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is where you give something good to your subject as a reward. Negative reinforcement is something you take something annoying away. Positive punishment is giving something that's annoying, and negative punishment is taking away something that's good. So that's just in case like somebody doesn't know that.
Would you define being kicked off a cliff because I didn't look around the corner with my camera positive or negative punishment?
No, I think that I call that just being a dick. Fuck you From Software. No, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, same man. Please put Sekiro on more discount, please. I'm still waiting to buy it. It's a little bit too expensive right now.
Well, I mean, so I want to talk about gatekeeping based on skill of a gamer, and I want to know why is it that at least in the gaming world or on the internet in general, why is it that a certain game is meant for a certain skill of a player in an open market, and at the same time I mean, unless you read the information about these games online, these games won't give you that information readily.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, when Dark Souls came out, it was just difficult.
Yeah.
There was, like, somebody found it and they were like, dude, look at how much I want to kill myself playing this game. And then everybody, like, looked at it.
Exactly.
So, I want to know why psychological horror is such a big theme when it comes to video game literacy, at least when it comes to oppressing the mechanic of that for the same.
I mean, if you want to put it in terms of like psychological horror, I guess it's that not handing the player every piece of information that the game has, like right in front of him, that makes you want to think and makes you want to like figure things out on your own and figure out your own way how to get through this level. And I think that's a trend that's happening a lot. And with games, I think you'll see that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there are 2 modes right now. Exploration and this thing where it just gives you some clues and you need to figure out your location and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't consider it gatekeeping as such, because like it's not discouraging bad players. I mean, there's no such thing as a bad player. It's not discouraging new players. It's about the mindset a player is going to that game with. Like if you're going into that game with the mindset that everything's going to be handed to me on a platter, they're going to tell me where to go from A to B in every second, then yeah, that game's not for you. I mean, that doesn't mean you're a bad player because the game is not for you. It just means that it's just not your kind of game. And Dark Souls is catered to the kind of people who really want to figure out, like Dark Souls and any other game that just doesn't hold your hand. I think the other one coming to my head right now is an indie game called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. So it doesn't tell you what to do. It just drops you into the world. You need to figure out everything on your own. And it's catered for people who like those things. So I wouldn't consider it as a point of gatekeeping. And anyone who uses it as a point of gatekeeping, I mean, it's not fair. I mean, like, there are people who don't want to spend that time in a game. That's not what they get enjoyment from, right? So you cannot blame them for not enjoying that kind of game, and you cannot call them bad players for that. So I think that's where I stand on that entire topic. So I don't think gatekeeping in terms of like, not providing, being more difficult or not providing certain information. I don't think that's the level of gatekeeping. I think it's just a level of preference.
Well, this is more in the I'm thinking also in the context, would you include like a competitive game, a multiplayer game in the gatekeeping realm, not just as, people shaming newer players, but where it's like a competition based thing, like when it's like a heavily complicated like learning curve, ranking up, and then when you feel like very defeated for the most part in the beginning. So I actually didn't think about it just in the context of like a RPG, or like that would be just difficulty, right?
I mean, difficulty is one of the places I'm bringing my context from, but that definitely falls in the same realm. Like, I'm not against discussing that in the same space of discussion, because even in that, skill is relevant to why the gamer, like the player, is discouraged to play the game.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to get into it, that's fine by me.
I mean, I actually don't know if that's a fully, because that's also just in terms of the people involved, where it's not really, I mean, that's a separate genre, I guess, of dealing with, I don't know, other players as opposed to just yourself. And
I mean, I want to get into the culture of gatekeeping, especially with like
I don't know whether to go there.
Yeah, so like we'll go into
Wait, before you go into that, I'm just going to elaborate on what Madhavi said. So basically, where you'd see a lot of gatekeeping is, like she said, in a competitive game. Like the example I can give you is Overwatch, because it's a game I've played quite a bit. And if you go through requests for balance changes and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of gatekeeping going on there, where somebody is like, oh, you're so-and-so rank, you don't get an opinion in this. You don't get an opinion on how to balance a hero, because like just because you cannot deal with it at your rank. And like honestly, I don't know if that's wrong, because like, I mean, I don't know exactly where I stand in this topic, because I have not had enough time to like create a formulated opinion on it. But so like you'll end up in scenarios where there are people saying that people who are at lower ranks should not get to decide the balance of the game, because they need to work on their own skill level and up that, and then once they reach a higher rank where the game is actually balanced, where people actually know how to deal with things which you're not able to deal with at a lower rank, so that's when you're allowed to have an opinion on balance. And I can see how that makes sense, but I can also see how that does not make sense. It's like a double-edged sword right there. So basically you're right, like, okay, if at the professional level of that game, if a hero or a character is not problematic, okay, and maybe it's even the opposite of problematic, maybe it's like really weak, you never know, and that happens quite often in a game like Overwatch. So basically, now it is correct to a certain extent to tell people at lower ranks that they should not have an opinion in that, because at pro level, which is what the most money is coming in from, I guess, like in terms of esports and stuff, it's working fine, and you cannot skew the balance of a pro game for somebody who's a low rank. But on the other hand of that, you have one person in the game. Okay, so now maybe somebody who's playing at a lower rank doesn't have the entire day to practice the game, right? He's playing like maybe 1 hour in his lunch break, or like maybe an hour after he gets home, or 2 hours. And yeah, he's not at quite that skill level. But does that mean he's not allowed to enjoy the game? So like I said, it's a double-edged sword, and I don't know which category I fall in. Because like I know some days of the week I'm like, so if somebody picks up a hero that I play or that I don't have an issue dealing with because I know what to do, and I'm like, no, you're just being, you're just like crying about it because like you don't know how to deal with it. And then some days I'm playing the game and I'll have a hero which I cannot play against and I keep having an issue. And then I'm like, man, this is like ridiculous. And then I have to go through myself like, wait, is it really ridiculous, or am I doing something wrong, or do I have enough time to practice it? So, but then, like I said, now all of us here, I mean, except you, are at work most of the day. Are at work most of the day. So we don't get that much time to play anymore. So, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people, right? But then I can see how their enjoyment of the game is also going, and it causes them to drop off. So, like I said, double-edged sword. So I don't think. But then again, like, what would you put as a solution to this? It's like one of those questions that is very tough to answer. Like, do you balance the game around the pros, or do you try and make changes for like lower ranks?
No, I mean, my solution would be have separate tiers of operation.
Yeah, but like you cannot fundamentally change a character to work differently in a tier, right? Like
that's true.
Like once you get out of that tier, you're going to be handicapped. Like who's like you're so used to dealing with something like this, and then you go to the next tier and like everything you learned from your hours of gameplay is useless.
You have to unlearn that.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
So like I said, double-edged sword. But at the end of the day, I feel like I lean more towards balancing the game in terms of pros, and I think in this case I do lean towards gatekeeping opinions based on character strengths.
Okay.
So I think this is one of the more logical reasons to gatekeep. Like I said, I'm saying that it's a double-edged sword. It's not perfect. It's like the world is not perfect, right?
Yeah.
So
the one that I think you both will agree is a problem, and this is not just gatekeeping based on video game literacy. It's gatekeeping in general in video games. It's cultural gatekeeping. Okay. Now, I'll be very honest, and I know I'm gonna piss off at least 2 people that listen, but Dark Souls doesn't exactly have the best set of fans.
It depends on which context you mean that.
No, I mean I'm talking about the people who are like, you're not a real gamer if you can't. Yeah, exactly.
That is absolute. Like I said, I mentioned this before also. Just because somebody doesn't want to play Dark Souls and doesn't like Dark Souls doesn't make them a bad player. They will probably whoop you in any other game.
Exactly.
Of their preference. You never know, man.
And even an RPG for that matter.
Exactly. Like they're probably much better than you at another game. You don't know that. Like it's like me judging a pro CS player on his Dark Souls skills. Man, maybe he sucks at Dark Souls, but he's gonna wreck me at CS. So it doesn't make sense, and I don't think it's a fair comparison.
Fair enough.
So
what does like good at video games in a general sense really boil down to? You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, implicitly you just cannot compare Dark Souls and CS. But also on the subject of like technical gatekeeping, one more thing was like CS I feel I don't know enough other shooters to really compare it to, but Counter-Strike has just a horrifying implicit like first step that you have to make to like enjoy it further, because there's only so much you can play until you have to like get into like aiming maps and like practicing and like doing 30 kills in a deathmatch before you do your competitive match, and then you're like on these forums which are telling you to do like 5 push-ups before every game, and like it gets batshit very quick, and it's very difficult, because when I want to get a friend into Counter-Strike, I don't know what to tell them.
So wait, you're saying running around in deathmatch with the P90 is not the way to play the game?
It absolutely is, and you can I will die on that hill. But also, oh god, deathmatch on CSGO chat will wreck you for that.
I mean, deathmatch chat in general is just like so much trouble.
It's really entertaining though, but it's in like a really chaotic way.
I think like
it's kind of endearing.
The most fun I've had in CS, I barely play. Like I've got less than 100 hours in the game. Is when I'm playing deathmatch and randomly I get Russian players in the game and they enter voice chat. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you using P90? Fucking P90, suka.
Why Rush B?
But Rush B is so good.
Every time noob kick. God. Yeah, I had someone I used to play with who tried to just pretend not to know me and say like, kick. My name at the time was Shrimp Pimp, but kick Shrimp Pimp P90 Noobra. I got kicked. It still haunts me to this day. But
Can we just like for the moment address that your name was Shrimp Pimp?
It was also
P90.
Girl Fairy, which I'm more proud of, and I would really like to talk about that. I did steal it from somewhere, but I don't get to like show this off enough.
You should definitely. That's
What was like after every kill did you say, and that's your trip to Flavortown?
I'm afraid no one would get that, but
My old CS name used to be Sardi_Khansi.
So, for people who listen to the podcast regularly, go back to episode 45. The Sardi_Khasi is in this room now.
Why was I in this? What?
Yashasvi mentioned your name for some reason.
Yeah, okay.
He was like there was yellow fang and Black Death, and then there was Sardi_Khasi.
I've gone through a couple. I went through Sardi_Khasi, then I had a couple in the middle which I don't remember. And then once I shifted to Steam, and actually once I shifted to like GG client and started playing Dota, it was Snap. And then it became Snapman LOL, not Snapman Lil. And some of my accounts have Horror Buntai. So yeah, those are a couple of names I go by. And my so I do create a lot of test accounts at work, and they're all called Googleish. Like they start from Googleish 1, and now we're at like I don't know what number anymore. But yeah, I don't know where the joke started, but yeah, now everyone calls me Googleish at work. Yeah.
I have a friend who had like a Steam name that I still think about, which was I mean, if you like visualize it, like the number 8 HZ and then WANIP. So it looks like something technical that you're trying to like pass, but it's just it hurts when IP.
Oh.
It's just so good. I'm so fond of him. I hope he's doing great.
That's brilliant though. Yeah. I think my first gaming name was chocolate flavored ass cream.
Damn. We're going straight 8th standard on this.
It was in 8th grade.
See, I know. Yeah, I had my fair share of weird names in the 8th grade, which I don't remember anymore.
Then I was Christian salad.
Okay.
And now I'm Hindu hummus. So, yeah.
I think you should like take on Kinky Kakdi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I was going to save it for later, but you know what? Why not? I make promises I don't keep in my podcast all the time.
Yeah, so I think that should be your next one.
Oh, we're very serious about creating a gaming channel by the name Kinky Kakadi.
I think it's a good idea. Like I'll come and feature on some episodes as like
what are the veggies?
No,
Mutton Murtuza. Chicken Kumar.
Chicken Kumar.
Fish Falguni.
I can keep going, man.
I'm not stopping you.
Prawns Prashant.
What is wrong with
So yeah, like that can be one of my yeah, so like yeah, okay. So I'll feature as a different name each time.
Yeah.
And I'll do like a voice and all that.
Cool.
अपना भाई आ गया मटन मुर्तुजा इधर क्या बोल रहे पब्लिक.
No, I'll be the noob who everyone defeats. Because mostly the reason I want to do party games is because they require the least amount of.
Oh dude, party games, man. I own a lot of them. I keep buying the packs on Steam and they're sick. Which one?
Jackbox?
No.
Wait. No, go for it.
So Jackbox is nice, but I think the best one I've played till now is 8-Bit Fiesta. It's an entire 8-bit game, drinking game, and it keeps cycling through these different kinds of levels, and it is so good, dude. I mean, I yet to play at a party because like it's hard to carry a PC around to a party, right? But yeah, sick game, man. I think it's like really YouTube worthy, especially with the kind of shenanigans that go on with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and also Mario Party.
Of course.
Cool.
I mean, I was also thinking FIFA and Mortal Kombat.
Oh, Mortal Kombat's always good. FIFA, I don't really recommend as a party game, man. I don't know why.
I feel like it could be entertaining to watch on a YouTube video.
I feel like FIFA is just like a game of quiet contemplation with like the random like
Meditative.
and then like go back to like quiet contemplation.
You-
Oh, you haven't heard Kinky Kakadi over here play? It's great. It's an experience. We save it for the pod.
Like I keep seeing like these really good FIFA players at work, and like these guys play like on another level, and I just see them and they're so focused and like, you know, you'd think that they're actually watching a match. And sometimes it's like, I don't know, man. I'm like, are these guys like actually playing or what is going on? And like randomly across the room, like across from where I sit, I'll hear some people like, "Arre."
The way I talk during playing FIFA is with the aim of giving every nun that I ever came across a heart attack. We'll play FIFA sometime. Don't I think I have my laptop right now. We'll play it. You know,
man, I'm so bad at FIFA, dude. I score more own goals than anyone else. I'm like, you know what? Let's just get this match over with. You know what? Here, goal, you win. Can we go back to playing something else now? So can I pick up Mortal Kombat, pick Noob Saibot, and like teleslam the entire day? That's what I prefer doing.
Of course. Where was I? Oh, video game literacy. I think that's what this podcast was meant to be about. We're really sorry, guys. The other thing I really wanted to get into is that what games would you recommend for somebody to begin gaming?
That's
Like-
a good question.
Like something that requires moderate amounts of video game literacy, but at the same time, it actually shows them the possibilities of this as anything, like as an experience of gaming or as an experience of storytelling or an experience of, visual. What would you recommend?
I mean, it's hard for me to pick one. I'd have to go through a couple for different like genres and stuff.
Go ahead.
So if it comes to a shooter, I'm kind of torn between Counter-Strike and Overwatch. And Counter-Strike is because like mainly because it's a classic and it kind of gives you the feel of what the community is in a shooter game.
I hope that's not reflective of all communities, because Counter-Strike communities are not
I
ideal.
mean, all communities are like, you know, toxic in their own right, and so like people are passionate about the game. Why not? And I'd recommend Overwatch as a good start game to learn how to play a shooter, because like even if you suck at aim, you just pick like Moira or something or Mercy and just like left click on one of your allies and just like go with it, you know, that kind of stuff. It does give you the feel of playing an FPS game for sure, but you do have some handicaps for you, you know, so you have some, you know, what do you call them, training wheels. You have some training wheels for yourself, so it doesn't get like too difficult. And so when it comes to an RPG game, I as much as I want to recommend The Witcher 3, like it's honestly not the easiest game to start people off on.
Yeah, I actually I bought my friend Witcher 3, really forcing her to play it, but she refuses to go past the tutorial because it's a video game literacy issue, because she's really not used to the...
Exactly. You need to be an experienced player to actually get what is happening, you know, and to understand how the scope of the game and what's going on in it and that kind of stuff. So as for an RPG, I'd probably end up going with like Mass Effect 2.
Oh yeah.
Like,
or 1 even,
like
if they're okay with it.
1, as long as you don't pick the Infiltrator class, everything else is fine. Because the Infiltrator is like the most garbage thing I've ever played. Like you start off with no aim stability and you're forced to use like sniper rifles and stuff, and it's just like, it's like you're aiming from a boat. It's just the worst. And I had to sit through that for a long time before I got aim stability.
Yeah, actually I think Mass Effect was my first shooter. So
Mass Effect's a good game to get into, because it's like, it's an RPG, but it's also like a third-person shooter. And
like there was some slightly complicated combat.
Yeah,
like
but
ducking.
why I choose Mass Effect 2 is because Mass Effect 2 had a more basic combat system where it was basically cover combat at the end of the day. You know, like Call of Duty style, but like They can live with a few differences here and there. So I think it's a good game to start off with. And yeah, so for an RPG and a shooter, I'd start with that. And what other genres do we have, man? Like,
Let me think. Platforming?
oh, platforming. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Ubisoft plug here. Start with Rayman. Dude, honestly, Rayman is one of the better platformers out there.
I've not played Rayman yet. I can't comment.
It is an amazing platformer. And once you get good at Rayman and you really want to flex your skills, you go over to Ori and the Blind Forest, which is one of the best platformers I've played in my entire life. And one of the most difficult ones mechanically also. And I mean, I'm not like the best platformer player out there. But yeah, that game gave me some frustration, but it was also amazing. What other? If we start off with the racing, like right now, I think Forza Horizon is a good game, but I've not played it enough to actually suggest it.
Okay.
But I think NFS 2015 is a good enough starter game. It gives you a good idea of what a racing game is supposed to be like. What other genres do we have, man?
I actually have a specific situation that happened recently. Like, I've been trying to find a game that Karan could get into because he doesn't play a lot of like shooters. I mean, he just plays FIFA really, and he's not super fond of video games. So I did some research, and Stardew Valley came up as a great option, and we've been having a lot of fun playing that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, that's a great game, man.
Yeah, I feel like just as an option, I don't know how far mechanically it'll teach you, but I mean there are some vague concepts that you eventually accidentally learn.
Yeah.
But in terms of just a fun game to like for somebody who's really not fond of any genre they've tried, I feel like Stardew Valley tends to appeal to people.
And I think like if I have to go with the entire action adventure thing, I'm kind of torn between Uncharted and because Uncharted again on rails most of the time. Tomb Raider is also a great game to start off with, but I mean, actually, if you really want to get, I feel like if you really want to get somebody to feel like they're like a really badass character in the game, in an action adventure game, you start off with Assassin's Creed 1. Like the combat in that game is not something I'm fond of, but just that feel of running across rooftops and like assassinating targets and all that, it felt very nice and it wasn't very hard to do. So I think that's a good action game to get into. And oh man, like how can I forget the entire Arkham series except Origins. Arkham Origins is broken.
It sucks.
Arkham Origins is broken beyond measure. But Asylum, City and Night, really good games to get into. I mean, that combat system is an instant like from any player I've ever seen till now. I've not seen one new player who has not enjoyed that combat system because it's so easy to start off with. But it allows you to become really skillful at it with the skill point, with those combos, and you can do more stuff with the higher combo and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think that is close to being one of the most perfect action adventure games to start off with.
Okay.
Let you go ahead.
I'm actually.
Oh, you good?
You good? You sure?
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many genres I could actually keep going, but like
Yeah, Sandbox. To be honest, there's one game that people miss out on, and I think I brought it up before on this podcast.
okay.
It's Saints Row the Third.
Oh, dude, Saints Row is a sick franchise. I kind of really hate myself for not finishing the entire series. I remember buying all of them on the sale, but I never actually ended up playing them because they got occupied with other things. But it's something that's on my to-do list.
So, I mean, the only advice I have for our listeners, and if you guys have not played it, is that chip away at the soul, because like some of the shit in this game is deranged content-wise.
Yeah, I've seen some of the gameplay. So
Yeah. But it's a great game in the sense of commentary. It's really hilarious, and at the same time, well, for somebody who's just starting out gaming, that's a good place to start, especially if you're just like looking for a GTA style shooter. Not to say that GTA is difficult. GTA is super easy.
I think like the one genre that people really don't get into much is the RTS, which is like hands down one of my favorites. And I think like the best game to start off there. I don't know if I'm being biased because I'm wearing a Warcraft t-shirt, but it's like Warcraft 3. Because like Warcraft 3, it's like the perfect combination of a great RTS game with great gameplay and great story. The campaign is just, it's still one of the best campaigns out there. I've played a lot of games and Warcraft 3 still is in my memory. I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia or what, but yeah, Warcraft 3 for RTS. And if you want something a little bit like, I mean, not that intense story wise, then Age of Mythology, which is another one of my favorite games ever. So yeah.
Actually, I feel like I don't know what the trade-off of it would be, but if anyone's a Star Wars fan, then like Knights of the Old Republic, I feel has a better story than I think literally the entire Star Wars franchise. But definitely in terms of RPGs, I feel like it's
KOTR is like legendary in terms of like.
Have you played?
I played a bit back in the day, but
there's like twists in it that still mess with my head.
I know. I played a bit back in the day, but my PC couldn't really handle it that well. So
I was playing on like a Mac or something.
Yeah, I had to stop, and I just went back to playing Dota.
But that kind of got me in. I mean, although the combat in that is very basic, it's just like point.
It's pretty basic.
But I don't know, it completely plunged me into RPGs like right off. Like I had like a thirst for RPGs after I played that.
Like RPGs are my favorite genre, but I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here. Like RPGs are my favorite genre, but it's just like pizza is one of my favorite foods. But I don't want my madh.avi to taste like pizza. I think that's a good enough analogy saying that I don't want RPG in every single game I play. Yeah, so end rant.
Is this a diss at God of War? Or
see, like I said, God of War, amazing game. I actually bought a PS4 to play it, and the thing I hated the most about the game was the entire grind in Muspelheim, and which is the other one? I forgot the name. The misty place with the triangle level, procedurally generated level. I forgot the name.
I don't remember.
Niflheim.
Niflheim. Okay.
Muspelheim and Niflheim, just to get the best armor set in the game. That was just painful. That was unnecessary. I mean, it was unnecessary, grindy, and it was padded game hours, and I really don't like that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the God of War franchise in general. It was one of the first games I played on the PlayStation 2, and the way you acquired new stuff in the original God of War games was so much better. So much better. Where like through story progression, you'd probably find a new weapon, and you'd learn how to use it in combat. And I don't know, man. This just getting like pieces of gear that had stats just felt really weird. And I mean, I really do not like that system, leaking into games that don't really need it. And it is kind of becoming a trend nowadays. I mean, like with games, like I mean the looter shooter genre is becoming a thing nowadays. But then I feel like every shooter wants to be a looter shooter, and I think every game is getting RPG elements. And like I said, like everything doesn't have to be an RPG. You can always stick to. I think that's why I enjoyed Jedi Fallen Order so much, is because I did not have to grind for gear. I did not. I just could, play the level I'm in and not feel like, okay, I need to do this 100 more times so that I have the best gear ever. So I think that's a pretty important point.
I actually really enjoy grind, which has not helped me in a lot of things.
Like I do enjoy grind. Like I said, I'm a World of Warcraft player. I have been for like almost a decade now. So I do enjoy grinding, but not in every game I play. And like I said, there are some games where I don't, but it's really unnecessary. Like I felt God of War was really unnecessary, and it was basically padded game time. That I don't consider that game time legit gameplay. It was just me like zoning out and killing stuff.
Dissociating.
Yeah, I was not invested in the game while I was doing that.
I feel like this habit started with like original Pokemon games where it's just like a compulsive thing where I have to like go to every single corner of the room, check every box.
But yeah, it works in a game like Pokemon. It works in a game like World of Warcraft because they're designed around that. But then if you half-ass it in a game, and you can clearly tell that it wasn't their focus. That's why it has been so like shoehorned in as such. And it shows that the game has not been designed around this, and that design focus is clearly somewhere else, but they've just put it in for players to have something to do. And I really don't like that because you don't always have to have that.
Okay, next question, and this is you can pass on this as well if you want. For somebody who's a pretty experienced player, what is a game you recommend that is difficult or requires a certain amount of banging is a difficulty wall. Like if there is a game at all that you guys
there
wanna,
are so many, man.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, I'm gonna go completely mainstream and like public knowledge and go say Cuphead.
oh, Cuphead, dude, I have it on my Switch, and me and Yashasvi were playing it the other day, and dude, we could not get past the first level together. I mean, it's a combination of the Switch controls, obviously. With, I mean, it's hard getting used to the half controller thingy, but yeah, the game is overall really tough. I mean, I've played it with another friend, and we did get past some levels, but you genuinely need to struggle. Like, you need to like be on top of your game mechanically, man. Otherwise, it's just a no. And I'd also add like Dark Souls to that list, obviously, because it takes some perseverance, and any game around those lines, any game from Software, basically, you know, like it's not made to be an easy game. Then
What multiplayer shooters would you think are? Because not any of them are like super.
it depends. Like, if you want to play CS at a competitive level,
I feel like
or
CS mechanically. I
yeah,
mean,
mechanically,
the premise is pretty.
yeah,
takes
the
like a
premise is
second.
simple, but like I said, the entirety of that game is in your mechanics, and if you can learn to control the weapon you're playing, and you learn all those small angles for throwing
Like
grenades.
the recoil patterns.
Yeah, you learn the
it gets-
recoil patterns. You learn all the grenade throw, whatever I don't know the technical term, what people are calling it these days.
Yeah, you have to know the sound of the like smoke falling, like
Yeah,
fake
exactly.
flashes. Just
And you gotta have like I mean,
learning maps. I mean, I feel. CS
yeah,
is
understanding the
in-
map.
I guess that's in most games, but CS it's.
understanding like, you know, the economy of it, and how what like when to buy what weapon,
And like
and
leadership and
yeah,
rules and-
it's a lot of things to take into account. And then in terms of mechanical skill, if we go into another genre like an RTS, I'd say StarCraft 2 is still one of the harder games for me to play, and I feel like I'm literally, my fingers are melting off. And my previous boss was a very good StarCraft player, and he used to sit next to me, and he had this clacky ass mechanical keyboard, and all I could hear was and that was like the worst thing ever. But yeah, I mean, it looked really tough to play, you know.
I mean, I'm just saying this is not an ASMR yet. Please no, don't unsubscribe.
Welcome to my ASMR channel.
You're the second person on my channel to make that joke. Karan made it, right? I think the second Doom video, something like that.
Welcome to my second ASMR
Yeah.
channel.
I think I have what I need. Is there anything you wanna add to like what you've already said?
Okay. I mean, the one thing that I actually wanted to like put out there is like, in our country as such, I feel like literacy in terms of video games in general is very low. Especially with like, I mean, yeah, I'm sure like the kids out there today know that, you know, games exist and they're fun, and like, I mean, din ko khao sabji, raat ko khelo PUBG, that kind of stuff. And yeah, so but I feel like there needs to be more literacy towards like the older generations and like parents and stuff, because I mean, there is an industry out there. People can make a living doing these things, and I'm a prime example of that. You know, I mean, I decided to pursue it because it's something I love doing, and something I grew up doing, and something I'm good at. And I think like that literacy needs to go out to parents, and it's not something that's happening here. And it's quite important, and I wish we could raise more awareness for it. It's like a no topic, right? Like people are like, din bhar game khelte baithta hai, games khelte baithta hai. And it just doesn't work. You know, I think parents need to know about this. And I think the second thing is, I could be like really wrong in my statement of this, but it's just an observation that I've had, is that most of the Indian player base gravitates towards F2P games or pirated games. And I think that's a very big, you know, detriment to the industry in general. And yeah, it's not good, because like it's not like bad. I mean, like, yeah, okay, that's a game you prefer, but people need to understand that there are more games out there, and, you know, understand what is happening and how the industry is evolving, and what the new types of games are and what the new trends are, other than like, you know, doing skin roulettes in CS or like, you know, leveling up your Dota to Battle Pass and like flaming people on chat. You know, there's more to it than that. Or like playing. Oh wait, actually, you can't play PUBG on your mobile anymore, can you? It got banned, right? I don't know.
It was banned in like some district in Gujarat, but like it never went to a nationwide ban.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so like, I mean, yeah, you can play PUBG on your phone. I mean, I've seen people take it to the next level where they like emulate their mobile onto the phone. Oh, no, there's actually there's not even emulate. It's like I think you get an EXE for PC that runs the mobile
I know
PUBG.
friends who've done that.
Yeah, and play with keyboard and mouse. I'm like, why?
That's can you not see the irony?
I'll take it like even further. People play it on their phones and they have like these triggers that you get in the market.
I've seen those.
And like you can use them as buttons and convert your phone into like a thing of whatever.
I don't know, I just think it's pretty ridiculous, you know, but okay. And I think overall as a country we lack a lot of literacy in terms of video games because I guess like games are financially like more expensive in India. I mean, because of the purchasing power of our currency and that kind of stuff. But Steam has kind of helped in a way where we're not paying in dollars anymore and we're not subject to that fluctuation for a lot of things. But I still feel that, you know, people need to start exploring more games. I'm not saying stop playing Dota 2, stop playing CS, stop playing PUBG. Just know that there are other things to play. And if you don't have the means to play it, it's completely fine, man. But I mean, you can always do your research online, which I'm sure a lot of people do. But just don't pirate, man. Like the piracy it hurts all of us. And it hurts our country's gaming industry as a whole. So I don't think that's something people should do. And the more India pirates games, the less credibility we're going to have in the world, you know? So,
and in terms of credibility, I mean, this is also a tangent, sorry. But cheats in... I don't know the rates of cheats.
I was just thinking about that.
You
talking about the dude, the CS with Word EXE.
Man, the world really had a fun time shitting on that.
Yeah.
But
that was
it also like led to a lot of comments on just being super against Indians.
I mean, I found that ridiculous. I found that absolutely ridiculous because like the coach for one of the best Dota 2 teams in the world is an Indian. I mean, if anyone's a Dota fan here, like Balba is Indian, and Universe was Indian, and he literally won. I forgot which TI number it was, but he had the winning play of that thing, and the guy was an Indian guy, and I'm sure he had a good amount of support to get where he was. I don't know where he is now, but man, Universe, I'm a fan, man. That Echo Slam was sick. I mean, like, not only India as a whole, I mean, South Asia has a lot of really good gamers who just do not reach their potential, you know? I mean, let's take Sumail, for example. Sumail is one of the best mid Dota players out there. I'm saying one of the best, I'm not saying the best. I know it's a controversial topic, but one of. He's definitely a very good mid player. And South Asian player, again. And I don't like to draw boundaries in such like, it's just South Asia in general. And then his brother is also one of Yawar is one of the top, carry players and all that kind of stuff. So it's I feel like we need more education. These guys are setting examples for us. Yeah, okay, there are bad examples being set by cheaters.
It's awful because their whole team took a fall for that. A lot of people took a fall for that guy.
Yeah, a lot of people took a fall for that guy.
Yeah.
I think the entire country's credibility as like an online gaming thing took a fall.
I'm sorry, but could you just go into what actually happened?
I'll let madh.avi do that because I wasn't really following it that closely.
Cool.
So, sorry about mic etiquette. He basically, in the middle of a LAN tournament where it's famously difficult to cheat, you have to, there's always there's admins, there's checks that I can't imagine how he managed to get it across. And man, I can't remember the details about what he called the thing. I think he called it word.exe, which was, it's really easy to laugh at. But he tried when the admin leaned over. In the middle of the game, they paused and for a technical difficulty, the admin came in and asked to open his files and was basically surveying it. And he pushed her hand off. and that video is so heavily circulated. It's like burnt in people's brains. Like even there's this one guy who keeps making these CS:GO videos. What's his name? Oh god, I'm gonna feel real bad for forgetting it. But Super Stitum, and he even made a video for Forsaken, and my god, the comment section was a mess. Reddit was also a mess, but I mean, I didn't really want to rise in support of the dude or anything. The guy does not really. But he had like horrible backlash as well. Like people were accosting him at an airport. I don't remember the exact details, but he was personally attacked.
Yeah,
and
that is pushing it a bit. I don't think you should personally attack anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree, of course.
I mean, I'm going to quote that really famous Russian hockey player meme. It's just a game.
He's so
Why you have to be mad?
I do that all the time in video games, and it's very fun.
It's the best.
Well, that has been an hour of us talking about video game literacy and video games. I think we're good. Thank you for coming on the podcast, guys.
Thanks,
Please be sure to follow this ASMR channel.
I will not repeat that.
Alright, me lads, that's all for this week. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, follow us on whatever audio format you're listening to this on, and well, take care.